And since it's the last half hour on Thursday, that means we bring in Niko Moreno in Pulso Sports. Niko, my friend, great to see you. Welcome in. Have you had the chance to catch your breath yet about everything that's going on? It is days of our lives. It is Young and the Restless, and it is out of control up there in the Pacific Northwest. Hi.
Hey, John, a well-deserved second cup of coffee because, yes, it's been extremely busy out here in the PNW, specifically within matters of the Seattle Sounders, Long Acres, or the Providence Swedish facility. And it's been a lot between that, trying to watch Copa America, trying to figure out what's going on in MLS in general. I am tired, my man. I am beat.
So since you're there, I saw this pop up on your timeline yesterday. We'll go ahead and talk about it and then get MLS moving. What in the wide world of sports is going on with Raul and Schmetzer and players not being available because of spirited conversations? For those that haven't had the chance to follow you on social media, what is going on in Seattle? Break it down.
Yeah, so it all started per our reports, of course, and sourcing after the Dallas game, which ironically was a fantastic, very powerful 3-2 comeback after the team went down 2 goals in 5 minutes. And the guy who ignited that comeback was Raul Reyes. He had already come in. He was already on the field, but the guy who got the goal after it all kind of fell apart was Raul Reyes. A beautiful header, a header where he is fearless, where he beats a much bigger body to the ball. If you watch that in slow motion, I mean, it's hard to even comprehend how you could come in at that ball at that speed, at that rate, without at least being afraid for your own well-being. So it was a fantastic goal. After that, the team gets some confidence. Jordan Morris gets number 2 and number 3 to give the team the win. But it all falls in that first goal. During that first goal, there is a celebration for Raul Reyes, a gesture where he kind of looks at the bench and he points at his name and he kind of lifts the back of his jersey. So you could see the Reyes in the back and top of that 9 jersey. And so that created some controversy. There was also a moment in the game where Jordan Morris and Raul Reyes get into a little bit of an argument on something. So all of it just kind of felt very odd. It felt like the team was winning, but it felt like there was a lot going on inside the pitch. Then later, per our reports, per our sourcing, there was discussion of some sort between, or that it involved, if I may say so, both Nuhu and Raul. And on Tuesday, both players were not part of training. And obviously that was a little bit odd because both players also didn't stay for the usual ovation to the fans after a win. They went directly into the locker room. So there was a lot of speculations and things of that nature. And I was hoping that it would be addressed, or I thought that it was going to be addressed as a disciplinary action of some sort, but they just called it an internal matter on Tuesday. On Tuesday, it was an internal matter. They were going to provide us detail later down the week. Jeremiah O'Shannon and myself were able to gather enough sourcing to put up a story about the reason of both players not being there and the fact that they were not going to play on Saturday against Chicago. The decision had been made. Initially, maybe I thought that on Tuesday, Brian's reluctance to say, hey, the players have been suspended, maybe had something to do with that decision had not been made, but it looked like that wasn't the case. So we went with the story. We put that out there. And on Wednesday, a very unusual scrum is called by Brian, is called by the Seattle Sounders to clarify the entire deal, obviously all triggered by our report that you could find that sounded our heart. And so it got even more odd because Brian called it a coach's decision. He said, or he kind of went around the fact that it wasn't because of an argument and it wasn't because of anything. It was just a coaching decision. So he did a good job at fielding questions. I was talking to other media members about it. I was like, man, he was answering so confidently that I thought he was, just on the ball. Like I thought he was telling us everything that we wanted to know. And then I went back and heard what he said, and he didn't really clarify anything. He kind of made things even more murky. But this is what I think we were trying to clarify, and this is what I've been told. The difference between the suspension is the fact that it is a suspension, but they're effectively suspended, not officially suspended, which means that it's more of a team, or in this case, a coach's decision, and not an MLS type matter. So both players are going to get paid. They're just being isolated from the group. They're practicing individually, and they're not going to be part of Saturday's game. So that's kind of everything in a nutshell. A lot of information. Let me know if you need a recap on anything at all.
No. I mean, that's a lot of moving parts, but at the end of the day, you have two players who are key to the success of the Seattle Sounders who will not be active in the weekend, and it is officially basically coach's decision. You're sitting. You have to couch it, I guess, a certain way for the players union and making sure that
correct
you're still going to get paid or anything. It's just I'm pissed. It's a coach's decision. You're sitting. That's basically at the end of the day. That's what we're staring at.
Yeah, even though Brian said, I'm not mad, they're not mad, I'm just sitting them. So, that's the part where I was trying to figure out, exactly what the dynamic is. And they're doing a great job at just keeping things internal, right? Stephen Fry talked to us, and he was very, very clear on not adding to the fire. And I think he did a good job at actually highlighting the good things that Raul did. He called the gesture a passionate gesture from a hungry player. Christian, on the other hand, he was a little more straightforward. I was a little surprised. Actually, I was very surprised that right after Brian had just told us, it's not a suspension, it's more of a coaching decision, Christian talked to us, and he was like, yeah, I give credit to Smets for making a decision, and the players are going to be, we're all supportive of the decision, and they're going to come in and be more bought in. And he called it a suspension on a couple of occasions. So I thought Christian was a little bit more direct when it came to the thing. He said that these sort of situations need to be made an example. Those are pretty tough words, I think, especially when it comes from a teammate. So we'll see how it all plays out. Bottom line here, John, SDH family, is that regardless of how much they say that the locker room is as united as ever, and another surprise for me was Christian calling this the relationship with Raul Ruiz this year is as healthy as it's ever been, and the group is as healthy and together as it's ever been. I feel like sometimes when you got to say that as many times, maybe I don't know how true that is. Again, I take them by their word, and we've talked about this before, John. We got to take the players by their word, but that dynamic don't seem to be as cohesive as what they're saying, right? There's been issues with Leo coming off the field upset, and there's been problems with Nuhu already once this season. He's already been suspended or not being part of a game already once this season. There's been, a lot of things that happened last year with Nicolas Lodero. And I even asked Brian, I said, look, when we first started covering you as a head coach, you had this label as a player's coach. And, sometimes he would take it as a compliment, sometimes maybe not so much. I don't know if maybe he kind of took away from his strategic part of being a coach. Yeah. But I always thought it was great, the fact that he actually did make sure that players were motivated and they were put in positions where they could succeed. But over the last 2 years, there's been some issues. So I asked him, hey, with that said, have you changed anything about your coaching, or what's happened over the last 2 seasons where a lot of these problems have emerged, whether it was with Niko or whether it was with other players? So he kind of said, hey, I'll reflect on it. I'm not sure. I don't think I've changed anything. Maybe I'm a grumpy old man now, so it's a little bit different. So he was, pretty open about it, pretty transparent. But the reality, again, for me, is that there are issues that are being taken care of, but this is really going to test that theory. That's really going to test that theory, because if a player feels like maybe the team is turning their backs on them, or maybe there's factions. I ask this consistently too. It could be factions of players within the locker room, because Christian is best friends with Jordan, has his brother in the team. That could be one faction. You got the Latinos on the other side. You got the Brazilians. I mean, this could kind of make that seem like it could happen. It seemed like that's not the case. It seems like nobody's concerned about it. But this what's going on right now is really going to test the unity of this team, and you're going to be able to see it on their play and whatever happens moving forward.
Because at the same time, and you mentioned this, the more that you say something publicly, there's always going to be that impression that you're trying to convince yourself that that is in fact the case. It's like, yeah, everything's great. Yeah, it's next person. Yeah, everything's great. Third person. Yeah, everything's great. Yeah, and you keep saying the same thing over and over again. You might be trying to convince yourself that everything's great when it may not be.
That is correct. And again, that is my perception. Maybe in the future, we'll see if anything emerges and there is a better, there's more proof or moments in which maybe we'll see that that's not true. But for right now, we got to take the players for their word, and both Steph and Christian and even Brian are confident that this team is going to be better after this. And I am not as confident. I don't know. I mean, if I was a player, I feel like I'd feel some sort of way, right? If I got relegated to being isolated and things. The other question here, and I don't want to take too much of the time, although I guess this is kind of an important matter here. But I didn't get clarity on what pushed Raul kind of over that edge. Because look, Raul this season, he's been asked to do a lot, and he's done it. I think that he's put his ego away. He's been as committed as he's ever been in training. I've heard from Obed Vargas say that this year he saw that Raul was like the first one to training, and he was just so different. He was so committed. When he was asked to be a 10 and play as a 10, although he hates it, and he didn't seem to want to play as a 10, he did it anyway, and he played for the team, and he did a lot of stuff. And although he was relegated in Spain from the number one team, and he didn't seem going into the season like he was going to be the number 9 for this team, he still did the work. There was injuries, so he played. He's put up some goals. And over this week, right, where Brian kind of contradicts himself on player management and the reasons why he's put Jordan against a 3-man backline and things, when he repeated Jordan 3 games in a row. And maybe that's what pushed Raul over the edge. It was kind of like, man, I've been breaking my back, and now I don't even get a chance to play on a midweek. I mean, I'm not sure. It's just I'm still trying to figure that out. Brian just said that he just wants more playtime, and that's the reason why he was upset. But I don't know. It was a little bit more than that for a player that has been pretty committed to just being a team player.
We'll get into cliffhanger coming up in just a little bit, but we got to talk about Copa. And, we had Nino Torres from Gold TV on before you this morning, and we were discussing teams in trouble, biggest disappointments, biggest surprises, those kinds of things. As we get toward the end of the group stage, who has been your biggest disappointment so far?
My biggest disappointment is without a doubt Mexico, and I mean disappointment because that's the reality of it. You expect more out of Mexico, even when things are not going great. They seem to have that fight, that grit. He just hasn't been there. And I will say that I kind of told you guys, I mean, going into this Copa, I mentioned the fact that I thought that Mexico was going to flame out in the group stage. And I thought that they were overlooking Venezuela. And Venezuela looked very good yesterday. And they looked very good against Ecuador, regardless of whether Ecuador had one less player, because Ener Valencia decided to introduce his foot to someone's face. That did not Venezuela's problem. They did their job. They won that game. So Mexico in general, Santi Jimenez he's been given so many chances. I feel like he was overhyped, if I could say so. I understand he's a player that puts in a lot of goals for his club, and he's a guy that everybody wanted on the team, and everybody thought he was going to be the new guy, the new nine, and he just hasn't shown it. Yesterday, one-on-one opportunity, doesn't put it away. You could tell he's frustrated. The body language, the yellow card he gets, everything about Santi Jimenez game told you that he's frustrated. Maybe there's a lot of pressure. Maybe he's the system. I'm not sure, but Lozano definitely has some problems, man. It just hasn't been working. That midfield, I said it here. I said it in other shows. Mexico's midfield is too soft. There's no take. There's not a player that's going to be able to recuperate the ball and defend and push and grind without Alvarez, who's out for the remainder of the tournament. That's a huge blow for Mexico. And then you saw the importance of Montes once he was out as well in this game. So there's just a problem with that player pool. It's as poor as it's ever been, in my opinion. There is a lot of expectations for a team that, again, their problems are far beyond this group and this coach. It's about a federation. It's about infrastructure that's not there. So they're my biggest disappointment.
All right. Before we get into cliffhanger, one other topic that has popped into my head, because that's just kind of how we are. San Diego, we mentioned Chucky Lozano, but now there is talk that it might be Bob Bradley that would be the leader in the clubhouse to take over San Diego. And I imagine he's going to want the keys to the car in addition to just coaching on the touchline. I also imagine that it means that Michael is probably going to be an assistant here. Are you hearing anything about what's going on in San Diego and who might be named as the big boss?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a candidate. He's one that I had to go check out because, honestly, I didn't quite believe it when I first heard it. Not that there's anything wrong with Bob. And he's a guy that has done it with expansion team with LAFC. He's a guy that is a very good coach. He's a little bit spicy on the side, but he definitely is a coach that has been there, done that. So, but I still didn't feel like it fit. It seemed like Pio Herrera seemed to be a candidate that made a lot of sense for that team. And, now that there's so many coaches out of the job in Lucci and, Esteves, maybe that pool of interviews might get a little bit bigger. But all I've heard is that Bob is definitely one of the main candidates for the job.
All right, cliffhanger. It's that time. All right, make sure that you are properly hydrated, that you've got all your thoughts in your head when it comes to the matchups coming up this weekend. And we do have our interesting batch, as always. Since you are on your second cup of coffee, it starts on Friday night with NYC and the Purple Team. And basically is the way that for anyone who is new to this, I just keep going. And then when Niko wants to stop, he just interrupts me and he starts talking about it. We'll save Atlanta and Toronto for last. Because, this is where we're based. Montreal and Philadelphia, two teams in trouble. Revs and Crew are favored on the road in Foxborough at a plus 114. New England have found
interesting. That's an interesting one simply because the Revs have found it. What was lost, what was missing, what was not there. Carlos Hill and Brioni especially has really come out and been a spark for this team. He's been that finisher that they were probably lacking. Even Javier Arriaga, former Seattle Sounder, was part of the ideal 11 or match day 11 this week because he's been doing very well. He's found his feet. He's found some consistency within that back line. Do I think they're going to be able to give it to Columbus? No, I don't. I think Columbus might set them straight, but that's going to be an interesting one. What is the goals on that?
All right, so let's find out what the total is and the over-unders. And then that is always something that Niko likes to investigate in these situations. Over under at 2.5 is a minus 187. 3.5 is a plus 133. So that's where it flips at 3.5.
Oh, I like 3.5. I like 3.5, and I like Columbus on this one. It kind of bit me last week in that RSL LA Galaxy game. I thought that it was going to be a high-scoring game, and it was nothing close to that. But I'm going to go ahead and do it one more time. I'm going to put some juice boxes on.
All right. Red Bulls hosting DC United. They're a big favorite at a minus 204. This one's interesting. FC Dallas at home hosting FC Cincinnati. Matt Miazga out for the year. Nick Hagglund out for at least 8 weeks plus recovery time because of a broken fibula.
That's an interesting one. What are the numbers on that?
Dallas is a plus 154, slightly favored at home. FC Cincinnati on the road is a dog at a plus 159. Your draw's a plus 254. This one is intriguing to me.
Yeah, I think a draw could be the best or the safest bet on that one. I found Dallas interesting, man. That the way they played Seattle, I mean, they didn't really do much when it came to controlling the tempo of the game, but I thought that they were very selective on counter moments, and they exploited some of the issues that, or they kind of took what Seattle gave them in terms of mistakes. So can they do it in this one? Can they play as compact as they did against Seattle early? Maybe a 1-1 on this one could be what I could see, because yes, Cincinnati, they have all the tools, they have all the components, they have a very good base in general, but no Miazga. I know what is the other center back that got hurt for them as well?
You had Nick Hagglund, who's out.
Yeah. Yep, Nick Hagglund. There's no Robinson. I mean, this is a team that's going to be in dire need in that back end. You know, it's probably going to be Powell. Probably going to be some Jetlin in there trying to fill those spaces. So I think this could be a draw. I like the draw on this one.
Houston's hosting Charlotte. They're a favorite at a minus 128. Nashville's hosting Messi and Friends at a minus 111. They just seem to find ways to win. Doesn't matter where they are, but Messi and Friends always seem to find a way to come out on top. They're at a plus 271, by the way, on the road in Nashville.
They're at plus 271?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah, I would take that bet. I really would. There's nothing out of Nashville that scares you. Even when Mukhtar's on, even when Serge is on, like you said, this team believes, and we've seen it happen with, it doesn't matter who's in there. And whether it's with 9 players, with 11 players on the field, whether it's the young guy, whether it's Campana, I mean, this team has really shown you that with Tata Martino and a team that believes that it can win every game, yeah, I'll take this one all day.
Sporting favorite at home against Austin at a minus 127. LAFC is a minus 200 hosting Colorado, who's north of plus 455.
I want nothing to do with that game. Absolutely not. Odds are not favorable. And then Colorado's a team that can be a little bit of a coin flip, and maybe they find it, and maybe Navajo with a new contract is feeling real good, and maybe puts one on LAFC. Maybe they draw. This is a hard one to really look at, to be honest. I wouldn't put no money on it.
Over there.
Reason would tell you that LAFC should win this one, but it's one of those that could easily flip on you and cost you some juice boxes.
No doubt. Portland favored at home against Minnesota United. San Jose fires Luchi Gonzalez. They are a dog at home to LAG. LAG is a plus 142. So a favorite on the plus side on the road for Cali Classico.
What's the over-under on that one? Because the Galaxy are going to win that one.
Yeah. So your totals for over-under, 2.5 minus 263, 3.5 a minus 104. They're anticipating goals. 4.5 is a plus 209.
Oh, no, I don't like it. And look, maybe going against the belief that, as they say in Latin America, new coach always wins, or debuting coach always puts it together. Maybe San Jose can pull up a draw. I just don't see a team that has given up 50 plus goals this season to be able to handle a real synchronized, real well-oiled machine that is Joveljic, Pencil, Peck, and Fagundes now. Because Fagundes has been doing fantastic with this team. So, I think that's a tough one. I wouldn't put any of my juice boxes there, but I think LA Galaxy will get past the theory that a new coach kind of puts it together, gives you a bump. Too much talent for this LA Galaxy team.
Whitecaps favored at home against All Caps. So it's minus 123 for Vancouver hosting St. Louis City SC. That leaves us with two matches. Seattle's a big favorite at a minus 161 with Chicago coming to town. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Seattle has to show it on the field. I mean, we just talked about this novella, right? This mini series that's been this week of Sounders training. So can they put it together? Chicago is a very beatable team, regardless of at times maybe showing you a little things here and there. But I don't think that there's nothing about Chicago that Seattle can't handle. I think this is the most favorable matchup that Seattle has gotten at home, even over Dallas, even over some other teams that they've had at home. So they should get out here and win this one. But if they don't, that's going to be a big blow. It's going to be a big blow, but I expect Jordan Morris to be ignited as well by this whole thing, right? He's got to show that, I understand that things are going on, but I'm going to heat it. I'm heating up. I'm scoring goals. I'm working hard. Pedro de la Vega will feature in this one. Finally, he's going to be in the bench. Alex Roldan is back from and beyond past concussion protocol, so he'll be back, meaning Christian will be back up on the wing. So there are some things working for Seattle. But then again, how much of a distraction has this been? How can they put it together? That's going to be an interesting one. But Seattle should win that, no problem.
Last one on the board, Atlanta hosting Toronto, 4 points on the road last week, winning in D.C. in what was just one of the ugliest looking pitches we've seen in quite some time. And then getting a point out of all caps at St. Louis City SC and at City Park. So 4 points in 2, 5 points in 3. Now they're hosting Toronto, and they're a big favorite at a minus 135. Toronto's north of plus 300.
Yeah, especially this Toronto, man, they look so interesting. They seem to have it figured out, and they just kind of crumbled. That 3-0 against Red Bulls did not look good. And Atlanta, in their own way, it hasn't been brilliant, and it hasn't been spectacular, but they have been able to add points. They have been able to get a little bit of momentum. Maybe not second gear, third gear, but at least a first gear movement towards somewhere. I feel like they've done that. I know that there's been a lot of talk around Thiago Almada. As far as I know, there's nothing really set yet. There's no formal decision has been made. I know there's been reporting saying the opposite, but as far as I know, he's still part of this team. I feel like he knows and understands exactly what he needs to do with this team. It's going to be interesting. But defensively, man, Atlanta, they have this bend, don't break type of thing going on right now that could be a little bit dangerous against Toronto. But I have faith. I have faith in Atlanta. I think they'll pull the win.
All right, what's going on at Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports? You're a very, very busy man.
Yes, I mean, if you want background on everything that I talked about for the first 25 minutes of this show, you can go find the voices of Christian Roldan, Brian Smetzer, and here in Soccer Bar in about 45 minutes. We're going to get deep dive on that as well, all in Spanish. We're going to go a little more into Copa, which we didn't get a chance to do so here. I am very happy and very motivated with Colombia. I think that this could be their year. They didn't have a perfect game against Paraguay, but they got the win. So we'll see how they track going. They play Costa Rica tomorrow. So I think Colombia could definitely put their foot into the next round tomorrow. And then hopefully they continue to play as well as they have. They get Brazil on Tuesday. That's going to be a good one. A Brazil team that couldn't break down Costa Rica. So if Colombia can break down Costa Rica, it'll be a good sign of where Colombia can go.
And we'll see James. We'll see if James can keep dropping dimes like he did last
Ooh, nasty. That delivery into the box, baby. It doesn't matter who it is. Munoz closing out, or whether it is why is it escaping me? The midfielder for Colombia. Well, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who it is. Colombia definitely has great services into the box. And Luis Diaz, I mean, he has been fantastic. He's been inspired. He looks good. He's so hard to get off the ball. There's a play within this game against Paraguay where he takes on like 3 defenders and still puts a great ball in. So it's a encouraging side of Colombia that has a lot of weapons coming off the bench. They're very solid defensively. I'm not a Jerry Mina guy. I will admit that. So I'm hoping that they change that up, because he was kind of brought in because of an injury, hoping that they kind of modify that. But yeah, Colombia looks good.
Yeah, it was. We were all watching it, and we're sitting there looking at the dime that he dropped, and we're like, "Yo!" And everybody's going, "Well, where is that James been, man?" I mean, you had Munoz and Jefferson Lerma. Those were the
Lerma. Jefferson Lerma. Yes, that's the second goal. Yeah, I mean, that's typical James. James could be in the gutters when it comes to a club team. He puts on that Colombia jersey and he turns it to a whole different man. I mean, he is everywhere. He's passionate. He's magical. I do feel like they need to be a little more serious at times. I feel like a couple of transition moments didn't go their way against Paraguay because they got a little too cheeky. And as much as Colombians love the flair, we also like results, guys. So let's go ahead and put it together. Let's play straightforward. Maybe after a couple of goals, we can get a little cheekier. But come on, let's put it together.
Man wants to focus. He wants to get out of the group stage and into the knockouts. Go to your next gig, my friend. We will catch up with you again next week. We'll talk Copa and MLS as we always do. Great to see you on a Thursday.
All right, guys. Have a good one.